Hey guys, what's up? Sandu here, and today I'll be testing the best planar headphone by Sendy Audio that is called Peacock, that is going for 1500 bucks. And that is very dangerous territory because there are great sounding headphones in this price bracket as Odyssey LCD-X, as Hi-Fi Aria Stealth Edition. And if you're curious how this one stacks up against its competition, please stay a while, that will be revealed very soon. There are many great things and less great things to say about the Peacock, so let's check them out. We are talking about an open back headphone that uses only long-lasting materials with just two little pieces of plastic. While I liked the overall feel and build quality of their IVA, Peacock improved all the issues that I had with its predecessor. Their ear caps are now much bigger, their earpads followed the same path, and they can now accommodate bigger ears, which seems like a major improvement. Their ear caps are now gorgeous, and those golden peacock feathers are adding plenty of style points, always stealing everyone's attention when putting them near some other cans. Their earpads are softer and thicker too, and those are filled with memory foam for prolonged listening sessions. Its leather headband is much softer to anything that I've used before, and I wish its competitors would use a similar headband like this. Their earpads resemble the stock ones of Odyssey headphones, and I can hardly differentiate them. They fit around my head snugly and provide just enough padding. Cable quality is impressive, it seems to be handmade, it uses thick and high purity copper conductors, it has a beautiful wooden splitter, sturdy stainless steel jacks, terminated with a 4.4mm Pentacon jack. Two headphone adapters are also being included, terminated with a 1/4 inch headphone jack, and the second one with a balanced 4-pin XLR option. I'm glad they ditched those flimsy 2.5mm connectors on their IVA and went with much sturdier locking type 4-pin jacks. As for tech inside them, we are looking at an open back planar magnetic headphone that uses massive 88mm drivers that are being pushed by double-sided magnets in a push-pull configuration and by double-sided coils. Sendy is calling this quad-former technology. I'm quite surprised by its high-ish sensitivity of 103 dB per a single milliwatt of power. Add a lower impedance of 50 ohms and you can be sure that Peacock will sound decent to good enough even out of ordinary headphone jacks found on most computers, laptops, tablets and smartphones. I don't see them as power-hungry cans, that is for sure, but they will definitely benefit from a dedicated audio source and amplifier. I will be measuring them in the latest chapters of this review, but until that happens, let's hit some eardrums and check them out. Sound-wise, let's start with all the bad parts, with everything that was less impressive to me, and I will slowly move towards the good parts. My biggest letdown with this particular headphone was their slight metallic treble that has an unnatural vibe to it. Like the music is being fired from a metallic cylinder. A very strange effect, but also was apparent on their IVA headphone, but this one is a 600 bucks headphone and this one is much more expensive, and I believe that issue should be taken care of by now. And I'm not about being bright or harsh sounding because that is not really the case. They actually quite smooth sounding, quite gentle, quite relaxed sounding in the treble, but the way it vibrates, the way it shimmers, the way it's being delivered to me. So there is a longer echo in the treble, like everything is being fired from a metallic cylinder, and that adds a very weird resonance, something like that. I'm very much into treble intensive music. I'm listening to rock and metal all day long, and I know how hi-hats, cymbals, tambourines and bells should sound, but that is not really the case with the Peacock. And problem number 2 that I have with them is that they have something like a tunnel-like vision, all the sounds are coming from a wooden barrel, like from a metallic cylinder, and that hurts their sound staging capabilities. So they are sounding pretty wide when it comes to left to right soundstage, but not that impressive when it comes to depth. I believe they are mostly bidimensional sounding. So depth is quite muddy, not very focused, not very clear. I cannot focus on everything that happens in front of me or behind me. Not very clear in that department. IVA was pretty much the same, but again, that is a much cheaper headphone and that was okay. And for a much more expensive headphone, that is not really okay. And with that out of the way, let's focus on the good parts that made them good sounding in the first place. These can be described as quite natural sounding, so focusing your attention mostly on the bass and mid-range region, while completely discarding all that treble grittiness and brightness. I personally enjoyed quite a lot listening to slow and mid-paced music like blues and jazz, and even bad mastered music sounded pretty great on this particular headphone because they were never focusing on those mastering errors, on those nasty things, on grain. They were focusing on a macro scale, on all things that are making you move while listening to music. I could easily multitask with them in front of my PC. These are not actually trying to steal your attention, so in some ways I find them quite gentle and quite unoffensive sounding, so you can listen to them hours and hours. They will never grab your attention so often. While they aren't that impressive in terms of technicalities, so detailed retrieval, transparency, speed is not that impressive. They had a pretty good thump and a pretty good slam in my eardrums when some juicy watts were being delivered to them. So in some ways they sounded quite different, so quite opposite actually to the Headphone Amp sound, which will impress you when it comes to technicalities, but falls short when trying to put you into a relaxing state of mind. In terms of transients, when I put them on some higher class amplifiers like Flux Lab Acoustic Volot, that offers an almost infinite amount of power, that made them quite jumpy, quite impactful, quite engaging toy tapping, that added some oomph, some texture in the bass, that made them considerably more interesting compared to THX AAA amplifiers or with NFC amplifiers of topping or with portable DAC amps. So I find them quite good when it comes to slam and impact, and just okay, above average when it comes to speed. And I believe that transient response nuts as myself wouldn't be that impressive with this particular headphone because they want to relax you, they want to sound smooth, gentle, and so on. On the other hand, with some slow-paced music, they worked really amazing, so always trying to relax me. And I do believe that Peacock was made for music like this, and they worked really well with my older music collection. Moving on to Soundstage and Depth, with some bigger drivers, much bigger ear cups compared to their IVA headphones, it's just natural experiencing a much bigger sound, an airier sound, a wider soundstage in a way. With Peacock, I could easily focus on everything that was happening around my head, so everything just hovered a few centimeters away. And I could easily pick up those notes, something that wasn't really happening with the Sendy's IVA. They sounded even wider compared to the Odyssey LCDX and Headphone Amp Aria, which was quite impressive, but they didn't sound as holographic as it happens with upper class Headphone Amps and Odyssey headphones. So they are striking a nice balance between being musical and relaxing while sounding wide enough, but not so much to impress a loudspeaker enthusiast as myself. Their depth was just okay. I felt a few layers of sounds, but it wasn't such a magical experience as it usually happens with upper class planars. When it comes to detailed retrieval, I find them considerably clearer, more transparent, more detailed compared to IVA, and that was very clear from the start. I didn't need too much time to figure that out. However, at their respective price point, I believe they are underperforming because they are direct competitors, as Odyssey LCDX and Headphone Amp Aria are just clearer, more detailed, more transparent, and again, that was very clear from the start. Maybe detailed retrieval and a higher transparency wasn't really one of their goals. Maybe they wanted to focus on the macro scale, on the music itself, and not on the smallest nuances. And I do believe that that was certainly the case with the Sendy's Peacock. Don't get me wrong, they are still great sounding headphones when cymbals and hi-hats and tambourines aren't appearing on my music. That is certainly the case. But at $1,500, I just expected some better technicalities. With all that said, I know that not everybody cares for technicalities, for speed, for transparency, for detailed retrieval. And for people that want to be carried away by music and nothing else, I think that Peacock does that really, really well. Moving on to frequency response, once I'm adjusting them snugly on my head and they provide a good seal, I believe that the bass is actually quite good on this particular headphone. There is just one small issue, just below 40 Hz there is a small slope, there is a roll-off. Apart from that, these are quite impressive in the bass. When I'm putting them on Class A amplifiers, they are definitely sounding really fun, really impactful, quite thumpy sounding in the bass. They provided a few layers of bass, so I believe they have a high quality type of bass. Mid bass is slightly elevated, and that added some oomph, some texture, some fun factor into the mix. And I really cannot fault their bass performance because I find it close to immaculate sounding in here, so a job well done in the bass. By far the best part of the Peacock in terms of frequency response is their mid-range section that is just warmer, weightier, smoother sounding, adding some more meat on the bone. So this is not a technical sounding mid-range, this is just smoothing out the rough edges while adding some soul and body into my music. The upper mid-range wasn't that impressive. It felt a little hollow, a little emptier sounding. When female voices were reaching their crescendo, that felt a little muted, as if they were smoothing out higher dynamics. Their treble region felt like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it never went much higher to the rest of the frequency response, even in the most sensitive part of our hearing. So you can discard the notions as brightness, as listening fatigue, that will never happen. On the other hand, it was adding a little bit of distortion. It was not the cleanest type of treble. It was adding that unnatural ringing, that metallic ringing in the treble. And that was very apparent with treble intensive music like rock and metal. It was always screaming for my attention. Hey, look, this is not how my tambourines, like my hi-hats and cymbals, should sound, and that was very clear. Although for a 600 headphone that is almost okay, I can overlook that. For a 1500 headphone that is not really okay because this is a flagship headphone. I have also measured their performance using a mini DSP ear system, so everything from frequency response, total harmonic distortion, spectral decay, waterfall, and spectrogram. But since I don't like long and boring reviews, I strongly recommend checking out my measurement analysis in the written review that I've put below. In there, you'll also find two very important comparisons with the Odyssey LCD-X and also with the HiFiMan Aria Stealthy Edition, which are interesting and mandatory comparisons in my opinion. Please check all that goodness below, it will be worth your time. As for my conclusions, Sendy Audio crafted a better looking headphone and a comfier one to all their past doings, but at $1,500 I just expected some more in terms of sonics. There are better sounding headphones in the same price bracket that will be offering you better measurements and better technicalities. I know that not everybody cares about all those things, and if you care only about being carried away by music, then Peacock can be a worthy addition to your headphone collection. Peacock is still a good sounding headphone. I find them quite gentle and smooth. They are full-bodied, weight in the bass and mid-range, and they could portray a fairly large left-to-right soundstage. Okay guys, my full in-depth review can be found on my website. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it, and as usual, listen to my music. Be positive, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!